welcome to First Things First. Good morning. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright.
Let's do this.
Every morning, Nick is in a battle to see how close to the wire he can get a tweet out about the show starting.
I want the tweet to be accurate because I always say it
thought I had you
now.
beat. I had you beat.
Yeah.
And during the Gillette announce, you actually turned out had me beat. It was the only
Got a lot to do.
Physical thing you will do that beats me. Let's start with Tom Brady, who has an AC joint sprain in his non-throwing shoulder. According to reports, Brady suffered the injury week 4 against the Panthers and re-aggravated it in week 5 against the Buccaneers. Brady is expected to practice this week and play in Sunday's game against the Jets. Normally, this a non-story unless your name is Tom Brady. CC, how concerned should the Patriots be about Tom Brady's, again, non-throwing shoulder?
Well, you have to be concerned because who are the Patriots right now? I mean, they are Tom Brady throwing the football. We talked about it yesterday extensively. It's their defense, last in total defense, last in passing. So how are they going to win? Tom Brady. But, Nick, we've been talking about this for 5 weeks now. What will a quarterback look like at 40? Now, listen, I don't care what you eat. Jenna, I know you're on a strict regimen and everything. I don't care what you sleep in, all right? No human body is meant to be hit as many times as Tom Brady has been hit the first part of the season. Now, no, even a young quarterback, Marcus Mariota, he's hurt. Soft tissue injury, but quarterbacks, the more they get hit. Derek Carr. He missed some time. All right, so Tom Brady, listen, it's beyond nutrition. That offensive line, the only way they can move the ball is throwing the ball. The only way that they're going to be able to keep Tom Brady healthy is come up with other options. So what do? I look for the Patriots, just like last week defensively, they made some adjustments. This is what they do week in and week out. So I look for them to throw the ball even quicker, shorter to the running backs, and also Dwayne Allen. He used to be a pretty good football player. I think he's been targeted 6 times and has 1 catch. So get the other tight end involved, get the running backs involved. Don't put the responsibility on that offensive line, but this is something that we're going to watch. When Tom Brady misses practice, it's news. Tom Brady loves football. He loves to be out there, and he realizes that you don't get better by not practicing. So when he's not on the field, I'm concerned about it because I'm concerned about how many times he's been hit, Nick.
And you should be concerned. I mean, that was some Hall of Famer on Hall of Famer violence we saw there when Julius Peppers lands on him. And Jenna's right in that this is a different type of story because it's the non-throwing shoulder. If this is his throwing shoulder, it is a massive problem.
Yes.
It is a season-changing problem for New England, depending on what you think of Jimmy Garoppolo. But even with it being his non-throwing shoulder, this is the issue with having the entire success of your team based on, through 5 weeks, the greatness of one player. I understand every team's reliant on the quarterback. There are right now 2 teams in the NFL that people think could potentially be Super Bowl contenders that are relying on one guy, the Patriots and the Packers.
Yes.
Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. The real concern for the Pats is we now have a large enough sample size to say there is a trend of much poorer offensive line play than we saw last season. Throughout last regular season, Brady played in 12 games. He was sacked in the regular season 15 times. In the last 8 games, so take the 3 playoff games and the 5 games this year, he's been sacked 23 times. He's already been sacked 15 times this season, sacked 5 times in the Super Bowl. Like we are approaching a point where it is a real level of concern. In the last 3 weeks, if you want to lessen the sample, he's been hit more in the last 3 weeks than any 3-week stretch of the last 3 years of his career. And maybe it goes back further, but that's just as far back as my data goes. Like, he is banged up. This was inevitable with how many times he's hitting the ground.
If the motto for the Patriots is Tom Brady, well, let's just take away all the words. It's just basically the Patriots right now are Tom Brady. How silly of a thought would it be? You know you're playing against the Jets. Was there any possibility, just hear me out for a second, that if you have any semblance of a lead, maybe you rest him the games that you know you have a decent shot of, that your defense can actually hold up. Not sit him, but maybe take him out a couple plays where you don't actually need him and put Jimmy Garoppolo in and let this guy heal, not be affected completely by all the bangs and bruises, and get those legs underneath him as you go deeper into the season.
Jenna, there was a number of years ago when everyone in the NFL was embracing the Wildcat. Tim Tebow, people were having success, RG3, but then they start letting the quarterback go out and play the wide receiver position, and they direct snap the ball to the running back or a wide receiver. There was one team never embraced that. That's New England. Tom Brady, he's touching the ball every time. Like, that is their philosophy. Now, within their championship run, the dynasty that they've created, they've had multiple ways to win. They've won with defense. They've won with great special teams consistently. They've won with running the football. Tom Brady managing the game, right? So now this is the only time that they say, listen, Tom Brady, we're going to put everything on his back. They've never been this bad defensively. Even when they were undefeated, they were multiples. The defense was a top 10 defense. Their special teams were great, and their offense was historic. But right now, they're more dependent upon Tom Brady than at any other time, so they don't have as many ways to win.
Well,
so they don't have as many options of what to do. How do we protect them? But Tom Brady is not coming off the field. All right, NFL players aren't built that way, let alone the greatest quarterback, most accomplished quarterback.
What if you want Tom Brady in January?
But Jenna, here's the issue with, I don't think it's a dumb question. I said to CC first week of the show, and CC laughed at me so hard I didn't say it on television, but I'm going to say it now, that if the Patriots are as good as everyone thinks they are, they should give Tom Brady the same 4 games off to begin the year he had last year. Say, hey, Garoppolo, go get 4 games under your belt. We want Brady at 40 years old not to be playing in if we're in the playoffs, game 17, 18.
Okay, but now you're in week 5, so now play that out.
So just real quick, CC.
Okay.
But to Jenna's point, that they obviously didn't do that. So what about in blowouts? What about when they have the game in hand? They don't have none of these games in hand.
Yes.
That's
right.
the problem is, I went through this morning. You hate when I talk about games that could have gone either way. The Patriots have what I call one true win. A win where it was not a couple plays here and there. A game they dominated. A game that they could have taken the quarterback out early. That was the Saints game. Every other game's been back and forth. So, like, there are teams this year, the Jags, for instance, that have 3 wins. All of those wins, they dominated the game. Those games could not have gone back and forth. The Patriots have not been that team this year. And when you have the worst defense in football, there's no reason to believe they're going to be that team anytime soon.
So just take it a little step further. Their next 3 games, they have the Jets, they have the Falcons, and then they have the Chargers.
Yeah.
So of those 3 games, if this guy's going to start going into games really banged up and bruised with shoulder issues, and then it's going to be this issue because he's going to overcompensate, and you know, as a player, it just sort of progresses into the next thing. Why not take, say, like the Jets game? You know, maybe not do it for the Falcons and just lower his amount of time on the field. Lessen that time a little bit.
The reason why it's not fair to his teammates. Okay. Nate Solder, the left tackle, he's injured too. He's not playing well. He's playing in the game. Gronk, he's injured. He's playing in the game. But this is a team sport. Every man's got to carry a certain amount of water. And it's hard for the coaching staff to preach that and teach that to players, and then now all of a sudden we're going to make this huge exception for this other player who's healthy enough to play.
You say that yourself. There are different rules for the quarterback, and number 12 is not another player on his team, much less in the league.
Him participating less is not an option for the rest of the team. And Tom Brady is not the type of person that is going to allow Bill Belichick to take him out of the game when he's healthy.
And Jenna, I actually, because I wasn't in the locker room, I agree with the philosophy of, you know what, you do get different rules for different guys. Highest achievers, most important, can have different rules. The problem is, even let's just say, for instance, they could have different rules, that CC's wrong on that. The Patriots aren't playing well enough to win any games without him. They're not playing well enough to be in the position you're talking about. We can say, oh, take the Jets game off. Man, the Jets got the same record as New England.
I know that.
They're the Pats aren't sitting there at 5-0 with some questions about the defense, with some questions about Brady's health. They are fighting for their lives.
We heard Tom Brady last year play with concussion from a very good source.
His wife.
His wife. All right? Tom Brady is used to playing hurt. All right? just like the other players are used to playing hurt. Tom Brady wants to be accountable to his teammates. He's a great leader. Not only a great player, but he's a great leader, and you cannot lead on the bench. You can only lead from being on the field.
What he's not used to, CC, and this is where this is not his fault, because it's not like Brady all of a sudden is holding the ball for a super long period of time.
Yes.
What he's not used to is getting hit and sacked this many times. Last year, in the regular season, there were 4 games he was sacked multiple times. He has now been sacked multiple times in 8 consecutive games. That's going to wear on you at 30, let alone 40.
Tom Brady said this offseason, I'm going to play 3 to 5 more years.
Not getting hit like
and you
this.
know what that means? I don't care nothing about Garoppolo. I'm not never letting him get in there. And that's part of the mentality of being a great player. Tom Brady is not trying to let Garoppolo get any snaps because he wants to continue playing football.
The New Orleans Saints' Adrian Peterson experiment didn't last very long. At least it wasn't controversial or anything. The Saints traded Peterson to the Cardinals for a conditional 6th-round pick. Peterson has just 81 yards on 27 carries this season. CC, you think he can actually turn things around in Arizona?
Well, what is your definition of turn things around?
W's. I mean, can he pad his stats a little bit? Can he make the Cardinals become something that they weren't before he got there?
Well, first thing, he will be on the field more than he was in New Orleans.
He'll get more touches.
Arizona is a struggling offense, a struggling offensive line, but he's going to get the opportunity. Now, they love to play a 3-receiver set, all right, with 1 running back. Adrian Peterson has typically been I formation, pro style, fullback, tight end, 2 receivers. Now, Bruce Arians, he's one of the best play callers, but that's the reason why there was some optimism from me with him going with Sean Payton. So, out of the top 5 play callers, I would say with Sean Payton and Bruce Arians, those are 2 of the top 5. So
Careful, CC, you're almost making a list now.
No. But so I expect one of these coaches to be able to get some productivity out of Adrian. Now, of course, if you don't get the opportunities, Alvin Kamara, that was Adrian's biggest problem in New Orleans because when he signed there, they just had Mark Ingram. Great system, you know, thunder, lightning, a whole bunch of thunder, you know. But when you draft Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round out of Tennessee, he's begun to emerge. He is the perfect running back for a Drew Brees, Sean Payton coach team. So Adrian, he had a huge dilemma then. I'm glad they traded him. There was a couple teams I thought would be interested in him. Arizona's one of those teams. I think Arizona right now, they're trying to do anything they can to try to salvage their season. The West, NFC West, is wide open. You know, if they can get to 500, they believe like that they'll have a chance. Yeah. You know, keep Carson Palmer healthy. Larry Fitzgerald is playing well, but this is not a good football team. Now, Adrian Peterson, he will make them better because he gives them a huge threat inside the tackles that they haven't had since the first week of the season.
Nick's ready to jump across the table.
Jump.
CC, one of your, and I don't want to misquote you here, one of your lines I've heard you say so many times is, it's about getting the juice out of the berry. What is it? You
have to squeeze.
You got to squeeze. You always say, like, you give me the berry, like, I'll squeeze and get you the juice.
It needs pressure.
Exactly.
Yes.
Here's the problem. What if the berry has been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and there ain't no juice left in it? That's Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, I normally wouldn't use that analogy because it doesn't really
work?
help.
Okay, fair enough.
You can only use it when it works in your favor, okay?
There's no juice left in this berry. This guy has not been an above average NFL player since midway through the 2015 season. His last 13 games, forget the raw numbers of less than 3 yards per carry. In his last 13 games, spanning 3 seasons on 2 teams, he has only had 1 individual game where he averaged more than 4 yards per carry. And I don't blame him for this. He plays the most physically taxing position in all of sports, and he has played it a style that is about as physically taxing a way you can play it. I have a list here of some of the greatest running backs ever. Barry Sanders, what did he do in his 11th season? That's what Peterson's in. Well, he was retired. Jim Brown was retired. Earl Campbell was retired. Okay, O.J. was still playing. O.J., he averaged less than 4 yards per carry. What about Eric Dickerson in season 11? 3.5 yards per carry on 91 total yards for the season. LaDainian Tomlinson, the guy who is the other gold standard running back of this era. His 11th season was with the Jets, had 280 yards for the season. Like, you can't ask Adrian Peterson to be someone he's not anymore. I don't care what team he's with.
No, we're not trying to get him to be a superstar, but is he an upgrade from Chris Johnson?
I don't think so.
Look, when I first heard this, I thought, Adrian Peterson, here we go. Another sort of aging running back going to the Cardinals. Edrin James did it. Emmitt Smith did it. Here comes, here comes AP. He's going there. That's where he's going to finish his career. He's going to get his money. He's going to go out, and everyone's going to be happy. But then if you take it one step further, CC, I'll ask you this question. Is it possible that what we aren't seeing is that the Cardinals are all in this year, right? Because Carson Palmer's 37. Adrian is clearly basically in his last year. Larry Fitzgerald, I don't know how many more years he's going to play. He's 34 years old. Bruce Arians is coming off some health issues. This might be their last full season with one big push. Do you see it that way?
Jenna, that's a good observation. And Bruce Arians, I hadn't thought about Bruce and his health, but that's real. The story that I'm really close to is Larry Fitzgerald. And I can tell you right now, Larry, he hadn't made up his mind. Last year at this time, he hadn't made up his mind either and decided to come back. But Larry's question is totally different. Larry led the NFL in receptions last year at 33. So Larry can still play. Larry can still get 1,000 yards, 1,200, 10 touchdowns. Like, he's still playing at a high level. Carson Palmer was even more emphatic about, I need time off to make a career decision, talk to my family, than Big Ben, which we talked about yesterday. Now, so these are real situations. And one of the better general managers, Steve Keim, he does a great job. You can listen to him in the press report yesterday after the trade. He said, we thought we could upgrade the position. We saw a player out there that brings value to our team. Now, he's one of the better talent evaluators in the league. So he believes that right now, Adrian Peterson, they need his talent. So that might speak to the desperation. Because Carson Palmer, like, I believe this would be Carson Palmer's last year.
And they have no backup plan, by the way.
No.
They didn't draft a quarterback this year. It looks like
they were one of the teams that were looking for one.
And then didn't take one. The teams traded up ahead of them, and they ended up not getting one. So they have no obvious, the continuation plan past Carson Palmer. A few things about the Cardinals. I just want to level set on who this team is, because I think there's a bunch of teams in the league right now, 2-3, 3-2, who's good, who's not. I tried to tell the audience last week, favorite pick of the week was Philadelphia, -6.5. It wasn't because I love Philly the way Jenna does. I think Philly's good. It was because I think I thought Arizona last week was the worst 2-2 team in the league. I think this week they're the worst 2-3 team in the league. Why? They have 2 wins against terrible teams, Indianapolis in Jacoby's first start, and San Francisco, who's winless. Both of those wins were in overtime. The one against San Francisco, they're trailing in overtime, end up getting a Larry Fitzgerald touchdown to win the game. Trailing in overtime is something you could only recently do in the history of the NFL. They're not a good team. Our guy Dustin, who we shout out a lot, our great stats guy. Dustin is somehow the reason I love him so much. He's the one guy on the staff that's a bigger nerd than me. He compiles his own personal...
He works on Nick's staff. He doesn't work on Jenna and our staff.
No,
he's my personal guy.
Yes.
He compiles his own offensive line metrics and rankings. You know who he says is the worst offensive line in football? The Arizona Cardinals. So I get the names of it. You have guy that should be first ballot Hall of Famer in Larry Fitzgerald. Guy that will be first ballot Hall of Famer in Adrian Peterson.
Yes.
A guy that's first ballot Hall of Very Good, Carson Palmer. Like the tier right beneath Hall. He won't ever make the Hall of Fame, but he's right there with Phillip Rivers. Like, it was almost good enough. You have all those guys. One final push. The problem is, of those 3, Larry's the only one that's still good. Carson was bad last year, has been bad this year. Larry's still very good. And Adrian Peterson hasn't been good since midway through 2015. It didn't cost him much, a conditional 6th-round pick.
Right.
So what? I understand rolling the dice, but this is like going to Vegas. You're on your way out of the casino. You're like, let me throw $50 on double sixes on the craps table. Like, I know it's a 30-to-1 shot, but I'll risk it. This isn't something that I see working out for
But listen, the teams in front of them, NFC West, let's break it down.
Yeah.
The Rams. I believe the Cardinals, they probably think, something? They're not real. They're a year or 2 away. They're still young. Seattle, we know about Seattle, they're not looking great. They got some injury problems. Their offensive line. So, man, now is the time. Nick, if they can get to 9-7.
Well, and to supplement that point, even though I don't think they're good enough to do it, they haven't played Seattle or the Rams yet this year.
Yes.
So in their final 11 games, 4 of them are against the teams they're competing with for the division. So if it works,
and
if they're
if
good,
you're going to play those teams, you need a banger of a running back like Adrian Peterson.
Right. So just get a time machine and they got one.
Yes. Mark Schlereth
Best
is
of the
with
best.
us.
Good to see you.
Mark is
Good
in
seeing
from,
you
you were in Denver all week.
Yes.
Is it snowing in Denver yet?
It did. We did have some snow.
You did?
We
Yep.
did have some snow, but it's going to be nice and beautiful. Like that keeps people away, and then they don't realize
That's
it's
what you
beautiful.
want.
It's 80 degrees and sunny.
It just snows right around the airport, and then inside.
They'd be like, I don't want to move here. It's October. There's snow. Yeah.
It's good to have you back, buddy. All right, Ben Roethlisberger, let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a day to forget on Sunday. Threw 5 interceptions in a loss to the Jaguars. After the game, he questioned whether or not he still had an ability to play at a high level. Wasn't sure he, quote, still had it. On Tuesday, he said, quote, he still had it. He seems to be in much better spirits. Take a listen.
I have that belief that I'm one of the best that's ever done it, the best that's ever played this position, and you have to have that confidence. If you're asking me, is my heart into it, I'll say 100%. I love this game. I love this sport. I love my teammates, the fans. I give it everything I have.
It's a little confusing, Mark, just because it's, one day, I don't know, I'm not sure. Then the next day is like, I'm kind of amazing. Then the next day is, well, maybe I have it, maybe I don't. Then the next day is, I'm the best that ever played the game.
Right.
What's going on over there in Ben Roethlisberger's head?
Well, listen, I've had my butt whipped on many different occasions, and it's pretty depressing when you go out there and you don't play well, because I think the bottom line is you feel like you've let your team down. And there's no worse feeling for an athlete to feel like I'm the reason we lost and I let my team down. Although I will say this, a couple of picks at the end of the game, man, he's just chucking it. They're behind, he's just chucking it. Those things happen. The 2 pick sixes were both off of tip balls. So that's going to happen occasionally. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I look more at game planning. You're playing against, at that point, I believe the worst rush defense in football, and Le'Veon Bell gets 15 carries. By the way, by my count, and I broke this game down last night, after they took a 9-7 lead with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, 8:54.
They being Pittsburgh.
They being Pittsburgh. They took a 9-7 lead. I believe they let Le'Veon Bell carry it 3 times from that point forward. So, and I understand the game and dictates situations sometimes, but I look at the force feeding of Antonio Brown, 19 different times they went to him, 10 catches. I just looked at this game plan and said it was so off balance. These things are going to happen when you do that, when you don't get other players involved.
Why was that done? We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Why was it because Antonio made a stink, or was it because that was the game plan going in?
Sometimes I think that coaches get into this. They get into, hey, they're going to give us this, so we'll take it, as opposed to dictating. You have to do that to a degree. If they're going to give you throws, then you have to take those throws. But you also have to understand that to win this game, we need to make sure that we run it. Now, Jacksonville played an 8-man front the entirety of the game. They were down in an 8-man box. They basically said, we're not going to allow you to run this football. We're going to open up these passing lanes. And I get that to a degree. But it's a great way to get yourself beat when all you do is say, we're going to let you dictate the tempo of this game to us. Instead of, I don't care if you're an 8-man front. At some point, you've got to give Le'Veon Bell more carries than 15.
And your game plan, a game plan is where we're going to start. It's kind of like, this is my lane assignment. But as the game progresses, you have to adapt to how your team is playing and what they're doing based on injuries and scheme. You mentioned something that was important. The score was 9-7.
Right.
At that point, you're not trying to throw the ball, because if our initial attack was, let's throw the ball, because they're going to be playing a lot of guys in the box, let's get ahead of them. The end of that game plan is, we're going to get ahead, then we're going to run the ball. Okay, so now you're not in a shootout with Jacksonville. You don't ever think you're going to get in a shootout with Blake Bortles.
Right.
So at 9-7, you have to readjust your game plan and say, how do we get to the finish line? If we got 35 plays left, this should be 17, 18, run the pass ratio so you can get to the finish line. You don't always have the same game plan that when you start the week, that once you get into the game and feel the tempo of the game, that you continue with that. And there was no point in that game where Ben was so hot that we've been like, man, let's ride him.
Yeah.
Well, all right, so a few things here. One is, why does Jacksonville feel comfortable playing an 8-man front when Antonio Brown's out there? Because it is either the Jags or the Broncos that have the best pair of corners.
Yes.
Jalen Ramsey is phenomenal.
Right.
He's
Yes.
one of the best young corners to come into this league in a few years. A.J. Bouye was one of the best stories in the league. This guy was an undrafted player that caught on with the Texans. I was there when he
Had a
was
great year
one
last
of the
year.
last guys to make the roster. He turned that into an enormous contract from Jacksonville that he has lived up to. So Jacksonville is saying, we can, you know what? We can play an 8-man front because we trust our guys to go man-to-man even against some of the best in the league. Now let's talk about the Jags side of it. Here's what the Jags think of their quarterback situation. Blake Bortles threw one pass in the second half.
Right.
Ben Roethlisberger now has as many games this season with multiple touchdown passes to the Jaguars
Now, there was
as Jags quarterback Blake Bortles does.
Now, there was no, this game was not in Jacksonville under torrential rain.
No.
There was no snow. Because typically when you see a game like that,
Right.
like there's a reason based on the elements for that. Only one pass in the second half.
And so I say that to say this. Pittsburgh had to realize, like you said, when they're up 9-7, guys, the only way we lose this game is by giving it to them. And the thing you said, I don't know if it was Buddy Ryan, I can't remember the coach, that didn't like to pass the ball because two bad things can happen. He said, your job is to go apprehend that football and bring it back to me. Le'Veon Bell's not a notorious fumbler. Like, the only way Jags are going to score points is the way they did.
Right.
Short fields or pick sixes, defensive scores. It just, if the game plan was throw it 55 and run it 15, that's foolish. And if the game plan wasn't that, how did it turn into that when this was a close game for 2.5 quarters?
So why? Why would this happen then? If it wasn't the game plan going in, if it wasn't what the score was.
Because here's what happens to coaches, and this happens all around the league. This is not endemic of just Pittsburgh. This is league wide. You get into a situation where a defense basically says, "We're going to give you this. Go ahead and take it." And I always look at that like fool's gold. All right, where are we going here? At some point, you have to dictate to a defense. I don't care if you're in an 8-man box. We have a plan to run to that 8th man. We have a plan to run away from that 8th man. We've got a plan how to gain an extra offensive player on the front side and make sure we turn the backside loose and not let that guy get to us. And you've got to have that plan. But because this league, every rule is bent towards throwing the ball, sometimes defenses just go, throw the ball. Throw it on us. Because if you can throw it 8 straight times without something bad happening, we'll tip our hat to you and say, hey, you beat us. But to your point, their corners were outstanding. Their nickel corner was a freak show in tackling people and in coverage. They were dialed in. And Ramsey gave up a big pass over the top, I think 49 yards in the first throw of the game.
Yeah.
He has
off by the wide receiver.
Right, and he doesn't even care. He's just like, so what?
No,
what now?
Jacksonville is good. Jenna, what happens a lot is the coaches, they start thinking too much. They start thinking they know more than what they understand. And sometimes it just sends the wrong message to the players. Le'Veon Bell's in a unique situation, all right? His situation is every time you give me the ball, he is saying, you are trying to not get me paid. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers have decided, all right, you're going to play under this franchise tag. We are not going to give you a long-term contract. So for him, it's not about game plan. Every time he doesn't touch the ball, it's about his money and about the business. So they got a number of different things going on. But the key to it is when you win, all this goes away. If they had decided we're going to give them the ball 10 times and they win this game, you know, a tight game, low scoring, 17-14. We don't even talk about this. Ben's not talking about it. L. Bell's not talking about it because that's what winning does. But when you lose, these are the kind of things you hear.
I was just going to say, the losers lament in this whole thing is they'll say, hey, Le'Veon Bell only got 15 carries, but we threw it to him 10 times. And they'll try to sell you on that's an extension of the run game.
Yeah.
And you know what I say? Baloney extension of the run game, because when I make a swing pass to Le'Veon Bell or I line him outside, he runs a slant. We run a couple of guys off. He runs a slant underneath. That doesn't wear anybody out.
No, you can't bloody a guy's nose.
Right.
You don't wear the defense
but they'll
down
throw that out there and say, well, we still got him 25 touches, and I say that's baloney. Well, that doesn't work.
So this discussion started with Ben Roethlisberger saying, I'm one of the best to ever do it. And that might be a slight overstatement, but Ben's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Ben's had an outstanding career. What made, and I hate to talk in past tense there, but I will for the moment, what made Ben Roethlisberger special? It was how dynamic that offense could be with deep throws. Ben Roethlisberger was never the most accurate guy in the league.
No.
He never was a guy that had an outstanding touchdown-interception ratio. What he's been great at is big plays. And that's more concerning than the 5 interceptions. If you look at his career, he's always near the top of the league in yards per attempt. Forget being above 7. He's had half his seasons above 8, which is elite. A few seasons near 9, which is the best in football. This year he's averaging a Matt Castle-esque 6.5 yards per attempt. That's not who the Steelers are supposed to be. Certainly not in a year when Martavis Bryant's back, when Le'Veon Bell's playing for a contract, when Antonio Brown's healthy. That's the concern for Pittsburgh. What happened to your big plays?
On top of that being the concern, which is the stuff that happens on the field, this team is fractured by all this other noise that's happening off the field. So I asked both of you who played, when you have your quarterback, and for better or worse, like this team goes through Ben Roethlisberger, when you have a guy that you could very visibly see week in and week out, he differs between when his heart is in it and when his heart isn't in it, and he's committed, and if he's not committed, based on the game, based on his head, whatever. Can you lose a locker room that way?
Jenna, this is Ben Roethlisberger. Ben's a crybaby. Ben's an attention seeker. He's been this way for a long time. People with his injuries. Now, Ben, you talked about the deep ball. Another thing that Ben does is special is buy time in the pocket. Now, Ben is a warrior. He will sit in there and get hit. But also after the game, Ben will let you know how many injuries he's got. Oh, they had to shoot me up for this one. Oh, I didn't think I was going to be able to play. Now, we've been covering Ben really close for a long time. So this is something that we know. This is not new. This locker room, they do have a problem. I don't believe it's with the quarterback and what he said. They got a number of problems because they're money. They paid the wide receiver, all right? He's the highest paid wide receiver. He's done what he wanted to do on the field, off the field, the Facebook Live video. L. Bell's been a high performer. He hadn't got paid. The quarterback talked about quitting last year. So those are real issues. Tom Brady is saying, I want to play 5 more years. His wife says he should quit. Ben said last year, I'm thinking about quitting. So don't come back and tell me I'm one of the greatest ever one day, and another day you're thinking about quitting.
MLB analyst and 2009 World Series champ.
Sounds good.
All around energetic guy, Nick Swisher. Nick, welcome.
Good morning, guys. Hey,
You've never had a bad day.
I like the seat.
You guys never had a bad day.
Good energy coming off.
What game are you most excited about? Where do you want to start? Let's start
exactly where I want to start.
All right, let's start with
the Yankees, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Winner take all, game 5. And you know what's funny? I saw a stat this morning that I think most people wouldn't understand. The home team is only 11-16 in a winner take all game. I thought that the home team would have way bigger advantage than that. The Cleveland Indians in their organizational career 1-6 in winner take all, and the New York Yankees are 13-12.
But if you took that away and you just looked at the
you would never really think about that.
No, but if you just looked at the Yankees organization and the Indians organization, and you put the two of them up together against a winner-take-all, which one do you think, forget the better team, which one is primed to have the confidence to go in and not get rattled and not be...
Well, I don't think either team's rattled right now. I think both teams are extremely fit for this. I think they're ready for this. The Cleveland Indians have been waiting a long time to raise that banner. I feel like the Chicago Cubs did it last year. Could be on the side for the Cleveland Indians this year. But, hey, you know I bleed stripes. You always want the New York Yankees to do well in this game.
Sure.
I just don't know if they're going to be able to get Corey Kluber twice in one series. I feel real good about everybody's chances. I'm telling you, it's going to be a fun game to watch. 8 o'clock tonight. Everybody tune in.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Corey Kluber. So I'm looking at his game log as we speak, and he's going to win the Cy Young, I would imagine.
I think.
not based on what he did the first month and a half, 2 months of baseball. He wasn't very good the first
well,
month.
In his career, he hasn't been extremely well in the first half. He is almost a guy that just gets better with.
And so I bring that up because it was starting about mid-June that he went on this tear. I'm just looking at it. I mean, 0 earned runs, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 3,
right.
1, 1, 1, 3. Since mid-June, he has only had one instance of back-to-back starts where he gives up more than 1 run.
Right.
He has been not even like a 3-run and 2-run, which would be fine.
Of course.
So the idea that the Yankees are going to get him in consecutive starts, I say is very small. So I ask this. Can the Yankees win a 2-1 game?
You know what? I think
with this pitching matchup, I know they won a low-scoring game earlier in the series.
Here's the deal. I mean, you can also kind of look at it in this sense too. You got the old Cy Young in CC Sabathia, and you got the new Cy Young, kind of the old school and the new school. CC knows how to pitch. He used to be able to throw 99, 97 miles an hour. He has learned how to manipulate his fastball a little bit. That cutter has saved his career. I mean, he can place it on the outside corner, on the inside corner. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this game. It's hard sitting up here and trying to figure out what's going to happen because the Cleveland Indians are ready for it. I know.
Okay.
Edwin Encarnacion is ready for Game 5. He has not been available for the past 2. Obviously, the New York Yankees are feeling great about where they are, and they have a great chance tonight.
But let's get some real expectation for CC Sabathia. At this point in his career, he's not a Cy Young. He does have the cutter working now.
Of course.
But what are real expectations given that they have an amazing bullpen? It's winner take all.
Right.
Give me some real innings, pitches, runs. What are real expectations?
I'm telling you, in my opinion, if CC Sabathia can go 5 innings tonight, the New York Yankees will win the game.
Oh, wow.
Wow, okay.
I feel like if he can get the ball to the bullpen, they've got a great, great chance. But then again, you look on the other side, great pitching will always be great hitting, except for this postseason. You got Corey, who struggled that first start. Hey, you know that man has been in the weight room. He's been watching film. You know he is going to be prepared for this game. This is the biggest game in Cleveland since the World Series of last year. These guys want to get themselves back to that game. Hey, and if it was up to me, I think they have the talent to do that.
Can we talk about Joe Girardi for a second? Obviously, he had that very unfortunate gaffe in Game 2, I believe it was, in Game 2. And I didn't realize, okay, so I watched the game.
Right.
Had no clue it was nearly as big as it was going to be. And then the next day, it blew up to the point where it wasn't just a mistake. It was, did this guy just cost himself his own job? Is he playing for his job tonight?
I don't know. I think, obviously, I saw it just like you guys did, and I'm sure a lot of people were upset about that. And if you think about it, if you are a diehard New York Yankee fan, this series should be over. The New York Yankees should be in the ALCS. They should have won that series 3-1. It should already be over. I saw some stuff that Joe said yesterday in his press conference that it's hard because he cares so much. Well, no doubt. Everybody cares. I mean, everybody wants to be in there. That's the hard part about being a manager in today's game, that you are called upon to make these decisions right then and there. And obviously, you know that if you make the wrong decision, just like we saw, you can catch a lot of flack for that.
All right, so what do we expect from Aaron Judge tonight? And as a guy that's played, I know you played for both teams, but from the Yankees' perspective, he have an opportunity to really elevate his legend? I mean, that's the part that I'm looking at with Judge. Like, if this is a close game, and he does have one of those vintage Yankee postseason moments when he hasn't been great. He had a huge home run in the play-in game.
In the wild card game.
In the wild card game, the one-game wild card.
Right.
But in this
big
series,
double in Game 4 as well. Right?
In this series, leading up to that double, I think he was hitting like 081. He had been struggling.
1 for 11 with 9 punches.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So what do you expect from him in this game?
I mean, when you say like elevate his thing, I don't really understand.
I mean, like with a big hit tonight. I think he knows a big hit tonight and we win this series. I become one of these potentially Yankee
obviously, but Aaron Judge is the red circle in the lineup. You do not want that man to beat you.
Okay.
So you are not going to let him, runners on first, second, and third, maybe 2 outs. Hey, you might walk him, you might face the guy behind him, depending on what kind of lineup that Joe rolls out tonight. But I'm telling you, if I'm looking at lineups, up and down both sides, Aaron Judge, no doubt, red circle.
Even though he's struggling.
This man will not beat me. Because, hey, but you got to remember, man, one pitch anywhere in that zone, he gets the barrel on it, it's 450 feet, home run. So either way, man, I think that the power game has been awesome. It's been so much fun to watch. Baseball's been so exciting. But I think for myself, man, 52 home runs in a rookie year, that's pretty legendary.
Oh, fair.
So I feel like my man is really, really getting himself to where he needs to be. And obviously, we want to see another Derek Jeter postseason situation. But if he doesn't get the pitches to do it, hey, if that man stays in the strike zone, and he makes Corey come to him, he's got a real good chance.
I think the expression you mean is earn your pinstripes. And for the Yankees, that really, really means something. Let me just correct you for
Thank you,
the first time in your entire life.
More importantly, who wins Game 5?
Man.
You didn't come here for that.
I know. I appreciate you guys putting me on the seat like that. I had said previously that I thought the Cleveland Indians were going to win this series in 5 games. Obviously, we're here on the 5th game. Obviously, I love my Yankees, and
Stop.
I can't.
Who wins?
I think the Cleveland Indians win.
Big news out of the soccer world. The United States is out of World Cup contention. They lost 2-1 to Trinidad and Tobago last night in a shocking upset. This means the United States will miss the World Cup for the first time since 1986, the same year Top Gun was the movie of the year. That's how long ago that was. Nick, that was a movie with
Yeah, I'm aware of the movie.
This really bummed you out, Nick, both the Top Gun reference and what happened with the U.S. men's soccer team.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, it was a perfect confluence of events. What had to happen yesterday, there were 3 games kicking off at 8 o'clock. Yeah. For the U.S. to not make the World Cup, for the U.S. to be eliminated from the World Cup, they had to lose to Trinidad, a Trinidad team that was the worst team in the CONCACAF Hex by a wide margin, hadn't won a game in 7 matches. They needed also Panama to win. They needed also Honduras to win. All 3 of those things happened. So you can say, it's bad luck that Mexico didn't have to have their game. No, what mattered was the U.S. was playing a terrible team and came out as if they had already clinched. They came out like they had already made the World Cup. All they had to do was draw. They're down 2-0, 20 minutes into the game. Pulisic in the second half gets them within 1. They had 2 other decent scoring chances. Yeah, but Christian Pulisic, he's not going to get to play in a World Cup till he's 24.
Right.
Like, this is where we're at.
We're not in a good spot, all right? This was an awful showing, and it's an indictment on our men's program. It's an indictment on the coaching. It's an indictment on the players, because in the first 45 minutes of watching this game, you couldn't have told me this wasn't a dang on friendly or something, because there was no intensity by the U.S. Oh, the field, the grass, it was soggy. Yeah, they were running on the same field, all right? They were a lot better than us last night. Not by a small margin, by a wide margin. And all we needed was a draw. With all the athletes that we have, with all the resources they've invested in the program, all the dollars spent, for what? For us to miss?
My issue was after the game, the head coach, Bruce Arena, said, I'm not that concerned. We don't have to overhaul anything. We don't have to change anything. No one has to make any drastic moves. This is the one time you absolutely have to. At this point, this program needs to be overhauled, because all I've heard for years and years and years, I've been doing sports for a long time, is, soccer's really starting to pick up in the United States. Young kids are getting into soccer. And yet, look at the men's national team.
It's a total embarrassment.
It has not parlayed itself into the best national team, into the best team in the country.
You needed a draw against a terrible team and nothing against Trinidad and Tobagans, but the country's got the same population as the greater Milwaukee area. Like, they're just raw numbers. Listen, I'm 33 years old. This is the lowest moment of my lifetime for U.S. men's soccer.
Okay, well, it's a good thing you finished that sentence.
Oh, not the actual lowest moment of my lifetime?
No,
that was 8 minutes ago when you guys said, is LeBron done? And I realized I have to work with these.
That was the single-handed best joke I've made since we started the show.
That's a very low bar.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.